Hello and welcome to Quilt Addicts Anonymous. I'm Stephanie Soebbing. It's a Stashin with Stephanie day, and that is where we bring you a brand new fat quarter friendly pattern to go with this month's Stashin with Stephanie featured fabric. This month we're working with Birdwatch by Boccaccini Meadows for FIGO Fabrics. That's a modern division of Northcott Fabrics, which you may know better. They are a powerhouse in the quilting fabric manufacturer world. So I had a lot of fun with this month's pattern. What I did was I wanted to find a way to utilize the really light prints that we're going to see and the medium dark prints that are in there as well. So what I did was I revisited one of our most popular patterns of all time, and that's our block of the month burst. We originally did this as a block of the month several months ago or several years ago in boutiques, and they were all different block designs that all had that same kind of like modern log cabin-y look to them. So what I did was I took that basic block shape and I designed a new version of it, and we made it fat quarter friendly. So instead of having a bunch of different block designs, we have one block design and it's fat quarter friendly, so it's able to work with this, and we're able to use all of our light prints in that 9 patch and then the medium dark prints on the kind of pointy bits on the outside, and it makes for a fabulous combination that comes in multiple sizes. So I'm really excited. I think this was a great use of the fabric and a great way to honor a pattern that you guys really loved, but that is no longer available in print, and that at the time is only a block of the month. So it's way more complicated in terms of like what you need to do for your instructions and how much fabric you need. This way it's a really simple, you need this many fat quarters, you need this much background, you need this much binding, and you can make whatever size you want. We have 3 different sizes for that. We've got a small lap, a large lap, which is what I'm making for the sample, and then a queen size. Now the queen is 96 by 96, so a lot of people would consider that a king, but for me personally, I like a good 108 for a king so it can drop over the bed. So that's why I didn't call it a king. Let's take a peek at this month's fabrics, and then we can get in on the tutorial. This month's fabrics have a very neutral vibe to them. They're very pretty. I won't unroll all of them, but some of them I certainly will. Of course, it's Birdwatch. We got to have a few birds. Now, this is going to be used small. So if you're not a huge bird fan, you're not going to see like huge birds. You certainly could have some fun and fussy cut some of these, or maybe get some yardage of this for the back, or to add some borders to make that queen the 108. But this one's really pretty, really fun, and it features a lot of the colors that we're going to see in the different colorways here. Next, we have these little green like switches. They're super cute. They, to me, just look like little twigs or stuff that something might make a bird's nest with, but it's a very neutral green. I really like it. And then we filled it out with some of the Northcott basics. This is Serenity, and it really is a pretty line. Got these little dots. We're going to see that in a few colorways. That's a nice green. It's not like a hunter green, like where you think 90s decor. It's just a really nice neutral green. This print, I think, has really good border potential. So it has all these like little meadow flowers, but they're all lined up in a row. So this one will be a really fun one if you want to do borders, or maybe a coordinating pillowcase, or even if you did some bias binding, that would be really fun. This is really fun too with all of the feathers. This one kind of has a blue tint to it in the background, a nice blue-gray. I really like this like weathered wood grain look. It's so pretty. That would also make a really fun binding, like a bias binding. Got to have some little flowers. And then this is the last of the blue tint. We have those dots again. Then we have a couple of these. This is bird tracks. This one is a nice white background. This could make a fun background. This is one of our fillers from one of the basics collections. Some shooting stars on there. Here are our feathers again. This one has a gray background and actually a little bit of like wisteria purple in there for an accent. More flowers with a gray back. This is that bird print again, but it's got a dark back. It's like almost black very dark gray. And so it's really cool. I think this would make a really big like statement border. Again, if you want to make that 96-inch quilt to be 108 to fit your king bed, like this is a really good one to add several yards on so you can add some borders. Then we've got our bird tracks one more time, this time with that dark background. So I really like this collection. It's a really good like modern neutral, and the way we're going to utilize the fabrics, if you're not a huge bird fan, you're not going to like see birds constantly. We're not fussy cutting anything. We're just going to cut stuff where it is for the fat quarter, and you're going to see more of the color than you will the design of the fabric, but you will see hints of it. You'll see a little bird head here and there, and the tracks and the little flowers. So it's really cute. It's really fun. And I think this is going to go with a lot of modern decors. This green especially is very in right now. Apparently everybody's painting their kitchens green. I'm not going to do that because got to sell my house. We got to go with the classic white. But this is apparently a thing right now. So you will be on the trend of the home decor if you go with Birdwatch. All right, let's get into the piecing of this. Oh, and I didn't even tell you about the club. Of course, I have to tell you about the club. So here's how this works. So if you sign up before the end of the month, your first bundle will come. We try to ship by the 20th of the following month. So if you order by the end of January, then it will come. We'll ship it to you around the 20th of February. Now that is pending us actually receiving the fabric on time. This month we received all of our fabric on the 19th. We had 2 giant pallets of fabric and we had 750 bundles to cut. So obviously we did not do all that in 24 hours. So that is why this video is coming out a little bit later than normal. But if you join the club, you get 10 fat quarters for $29.99 a month plus shipping. You get access to all of the patterns that we currently have out with Stashin with Stephanie. That is over a $200 value, I think, right now. You get 30% off our books that have fat quarter patterns in them. I've got 2 of them available, fat quarter patchwork quilts and fat quarter workshop. And both of those are doing well on Amazon, but you can get a signed copy from us at a discount, so that's always good. And let's see, there are other goodies. Oh, you get a special discount and first dibs on getting additional fabric. Now, the last 2 months we have completely sold out within like days of releasing our pattern. This month we do have extra fabric, and next month we will have extra fabric. So that hopefully will not happen the next couple of months. Hopefully everybody who wants a kit can get one, but I never know. Like, this is quilting season. Everybody wants to just stay at home when it's freezing cold out. So y'all might surprise me. Y'all have been surprised me lately with how much you want the fabric. So we shall see, but our subscribers get first dibs and they often wipe us out. So you want to be a subscriber if you love getting pretty fabrics, and the extra fabric gets you enough to do whatever you want, or you can get the extra 5 fat quarters that did not come in your bundle, plus background and binding to turn your bundle into a quilt kit. I've been a little rambly. We're going to get into the tutorial. Check it out. It's an awesome deal, and it's a great way to build up your stash and save some money on fabric, especially since fabric prices are going up significantly in 2022. So this deal just keeps getting better and better for you guys. So we're going to take our lightest prints and we're going to use those for our strips to make our 9 patch. A 9 patch is a very simple, very basic block. We're going to be able to get it done in no time, especially with strip piecing. Now, the one thing I like to do is try to arrange it so that if I do have one that's more of a light medium like this green, that I'm not having like 2 lights next to each other. I like to try to give a nice variety in what's going to be my strip piece unit. I also always make sure that my selvages are lined up on the same edge. This isn't the case for this pattern and with this fabric, but sometimes you'll have a really fat selvage that takes up a lot of space. And then if you have them going in both directions, like say we have a selvage down here, then, and you need like exactly the 21 inches from the tip of the selvage to where the top stops, like you are gonna maybe have some problems there. So I always like to keep everything all on the same size. That way when I'm trimming, I'm not losing like an inch here and an inch here because I got fat selvages, and then you don't have enough for what you want to do. So I'm just going to sew these together along the long side using a 1/4 inch stitch. Really basic thing. It's super, super fun and easy to do, like we cover in our beginner quilting class. So if you've been through that, you got this. All right, so when I'm sewing, I just want to make sure that the edge of my fabric is nice and even with the edge of my presser foot. And then what I do, I don't pin any of this, is I just kind of lift it up and align my edges along this side here. And then I'll hold my finger down, just let that take that up. Then when I can't do that anymore, I'm just going to separate again, line it up, and repeat until I make it all the way down the strip. So when I press, I like to press seams open, especially when I'm strip piecing, because if you're pressing over, what tends to happen is the strip tends to curve up, and then you have a lot of trouble getting straight piecing. So what I do is I open that seam up with my fingers, and I put the point of the iron right down the center of that seam. And I keep my fingers pressing that seam open ahead of the iron, because that really helps flatten things out, make this process go really smooth. Now I have probably pressed thousands of seams open at this point, so that may not be as smooth of a process for you as it is for me, but you will get the hang of it and it'll be super easy. Now what I like to do is also press from the right side here. And that gets me a super, super flat seam. All right, now I'm just going to repeat that process. I'm going to sew this other light strip onto the other side of my green, and then we're going to press open and we're ready to cut this apart. All right, when I get my final strip piece done, I like to take my spray mister, because I don't put water in my iron, and just spray across it. And that just gives it a light aerosol mist, so that way when I can go over it with the iron, it just makes that seam super, super flat, and makes it so much easier to trim down and have your accurate size pieces. I mean, that is as flat can be. You probably cannot tell how flat it is on camera, but this is good. This is so flat, like it's like paper thin. All right, so now we're gonna take and cross cut this to create our rows for our 9 patch. It's super simple to do it this way and a lot faster than cutting a bunch of squares and then sewing those together, as this way we're gonna be able to get 8 rows very quickly. Here's how you do it. I don't know what they're doing in the office upstairs, but it sounds like it's a herd of elephants. So I'm sorry if you guys can hear it too. All right, so for this first cut, we've got the selvage that we have to deal with that needs to get cut off. So what I do is I overcut. So I'm gonna line up any inch line with the seam line. It doesn't matter if they both end up lining up, as long as it's pretty close, you'll be fine. What I want to do is make sure that the measurement I have to measure to, 2.5 inches in this case, is before, but not too far after, where that widest selvage is. So I've got a little bit of wiggle room there. That's going to be good. Now, holding everything nice and steady, I'm just going to cut right across there, trim that off. Now for this first one only, we're going to want to flip that around. Now we're going to line it up so that the measurement that we need to cut to is exactly even with the edge. We still want to have a inch line there, even with a seam. That makes sure that everything is going to line up nicely when we put it next to each other. And then for the rest of these, you can just work your way down the strip to cut them all out. All right, so now I've got my 3 rows to make my 9 patch, and we're just going to line these up. Now I have all these rows pressed open. So what I do with these is I just look at it from above, and you can really easily tell that that seam is right on top of each other or not. And then I'm just going to put my pin in the right side of that seam allowance. The reason why I do the right side is we're going to sew along and we're going to stop with our needle down in the first half of that seam allowance, and only then do we pull this pin, because that needle kind of acts like a pin, keeps everything together, gets you some great joins. All right, I'm going to do this for the other side too, and then we're going to sew, press, and repeat with the other row. All right, so we're going to press this open as well. And the one thing you want to do, since we have a lot of seams now at this point, is you want to make sure you're lifting and pressing, because we don't want to press anything going in the wrong direction as we're working here. And that is looking really good. These are some very, very good joins. I'm very happy with that. I'm going to add my last row on here. We're going to pin it and get it together just the same way. I think I'll flip it this way. Yeah, I like that. That way these two are on the opposite ends. That'll look good. Now, just like when we were all done with the strip piece unit, I like to give the end of the block a little spritz too. That way we get nice flat joins and everything will be the right size to line up with when we put this together with the rest of our block. All right, so now we're gonna move on to those pointy bits that are on the side of the block. Now this is not hard. I wanna preface it with that, but you absolutely have to look at your instructions for this one because it matters very much where the orientation of the lines are for all of this. So what we're gonna do is you're gonna split the number of pieces in half. Half of them are going to be set up the way we have them on the left, and half of them are going to be set up the way we have it on the right. And as long as you do that, you will have it turn out fabulous and perfect. If you do not pay attention, you are going to sew something backwards. You are going to have funny looking blocks. So that is my warning. It's not hard. You have to look. You have to make sure your pieces look like the pieces on the pattern. Okay, so we're gonna start off, we've got our fat quarter longer rectangles here, and then we have some squares from our background, and I've drawn lines going from corner to corner on the wrong side of the squares, and I've orientated them so that they are pointing in. Now the reason for that is we need to line those up with the edges of our block units here, so that way they are going to end up being mirror image when everything is said and done. So eventually we're gonna be able to cut off this corner here and fold this back, and we end up with mirror image blocks to form the different ends of our point so that everything is pointing in towards the center. This is critical that you do this correctly. Not hard, just read and pay attention. You'll be just fine. All right, so I don't pin these. You certainly could if you wanted to. I would pin across here. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna sew on the line here. So what I would do if I were getting this together is I would line everything up and just have it like this. I would have my stacks of squares and my stacks of rectangles. Then I would pick this up, I would lay it against it, and then I would go and I would sew straight down the line, and then I would repeat until I was done with my stack, and then I would start on the second one. So that's how I do it, but organize it in a way that makes sense for you so that you're not gonna mess it up and sew one going the wrong way. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to cut off this triangle here so that way we can flip it over and press it and have mirror image blocks. But before you do all that, this is a good quality checkpoint to lay everything out. Make sure you have equal numbers where the lines are orientated like this. We have one where it's pointing down to the bottom left, one where it's pointing down to the bottom right, and when we flip it over, it's going the right way. We want that triangle to be in the corner. If you have messed this up and sewn it this way, then it's not gonna maybe work out right. So just make sure that you have equal amounts that are arranged so you have mirror image blocks in the same amount of each. And your pattern tells you how many you need for the different sizes. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and trim these off now. So I'm gonna line the 1/4 inch mark of my ruler up with that seam and that drawn line. That's gonna give me a 1/4 inch seam when I trim this off. And once I do that, then we're pretty much ready to go here. And we should have a unit that looks like this that we're eventually going to press open. Do the same thing on the other side. Now you don't need to save these triangles. I don't ever like to do anything with pieces this small, but I have 2 members of my team that do. So I kept them all in a little sandwich bag and they can decide amongst themselves who gets to make something with them. So even if this isn't for you, if this isn't something you want to keep, I guarantee you probably have a quilty friend who would love to have them. So I'm also going to press this seam open. Basically, I'm pressing every seam open in this quilt. It makes for great points, which we have a lot of in this quilt. And also, it really gives you lots of possibilities when it comes time to quilt. So I'd, again, just open that seam up and hit it from both sides. All right, so now we've got 2 mirror image rectangles with our little point on the end. It is the exact same process to do it when we have the triangle being the fat quarter fabric. Just the only difference is you're going to be marking the back of our fat quarter square instead of the background square. All right, I've got one more to show you, then we're ready to get this block assembled. All right, so this is the middle part of the pointy bits. And I've got 2 of my fat quarter rectangles and 2 of my background rectangles. They're all the same size, but they are going to end up being the same length as the other one because the middle sections are going to overlap to create that triangle in the center. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to flip over the background squares. That's usually lighter fabric, so that one's the easier one to mark. Now, ideally, you're going to use a 6.5 inch ruler for this. I have 2, don't know where either are at the moment, so we're going to use the big one. That's okay. All right, so when you have a square ruler like this, most of them are going to have this 45-degree line going straight through the center. We're going to line that up with the bottom of our rectangle along the 2.5 inch side. So for this one, and I'm marking this the exact same way it shows you in the pattern, so that way there's no confusion for you guys. I've got that 45-degree lined up with the bottom going right into that bottom right corner. Now I'm going to take my friction gel pen and making sure to lean it in so it's in contact with that ruler. I am marking that line. Now, here's a very important part. We got to create mirror image blocks. So what I need to do is flip my ruler around for this second one, still line it up with the bottom, but instead our point is going of this line is going to go into the bottom left. All right, so you do not need to mark it as dark as I have. I went a little nuts so you guys could see it very clearly on camera because this is important. It's got to be mirror image. So it's the same deal as before where you're going to split your stacks into 2 for your fat quarter rectangles and your background rectangles. You need 2 equal stacks. Your pattern tells you how much, and then you're going to be able to make this work just right. All right, now I'm going to orientate these. Again, we're going to follow the same thing that you have in your pattern. So we're going to turn our fat quarter rectangles like so, and then we're going to put our other ones, our background rectangles, on top of that. And it has to be orientated like that. I'm going to move this out so you can kind of see why. Because again, we're going to stitch down this line, and then when we open it up, that's going to give you the little pointy part with the triangle dead center. So it's a cool way to put together a block. You still get that bonus triangle to do something with or share with a friend. You can pin this if you want. What I tend to do is I tend to start sewing on the flat side, so in the middle of the rectangle, because I can better see where the end is here when I'm looking underneath. But play around with it, see what works best for you. You might find that your feed dogs are like eating this little part underneath, so you have to start out here. So just play and work with what works for you. Again, I would do all of one stack first and then move all into the other stack. And as long as you have half orientated in each way that you see here, you will end up with the correct amount of mirror image rectangles, so that way we can get our blocks together correctly. Again, not hard, just pay attention. Read the instructions, look at the diagrams, make sure yours looks like this one. I also like to move my needle to the center for this. I find it's easier to stay on the line when that needle's in the center than when I've got it in that 1/4 inch position. I'm just gonna chain stitch this other one. All I do is I just line up my corners like that and then up here. And then I know I'm good to go and start putting this under. Now, if you find that that's really hard for you, then just pin it and you'll be fine. So this is another really good time to quality check everything before you start trimming off our corners, is to just open them up and make sure that you have equal amounts where the points are pointing in toward each other. They should be mirror image blocks. If we were to put together like this, you would see that they are mirror images of each other. And that's what we want, so that way our edges are pointing in toward the center. All right, these are looking good, so I'm going to go ahead and trim off my bonus triangles and press those seams open as well. Then we're ready to get this block assembled. Well, this is less than ideal, but I have 2 fabrics right next to each other, but the rest of the blocks are already assembled, so we're going to roll with it, and it's okay, because it'll be one block of 36, and probably your eye won't go straight to that. So if that happens to you too, don't panic. It's okay. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to sew all of these together along the long sides, and the same with these to create 2 mirror image blocks. And it's pretty simple because there's no points to match, because the points all happen in the middle of the block or on the side where there's no point. So it's really nice. It's just like sewing a straight seam together, and it goes pretty easy that way. If you moved your sewing machine needle, make sure you move it back to that 1/4 inch stitch. All right, well, here we are. We're now down to a 4 patch. This one's super easy to sew together because there's nothing to match up. This one we do need to pin, so that way we can make sure that our lines come together. And also I like to sew with this part on top. That way I can sew just 1 needle width inside of where that point is, so that way we don't lose it. If you want more tips on how to not lose your points, we have an entire video dedicated to it from our free triangle masterclass. We'll make sure to link it above so you guys can take a peek at it. We are still going to press these seams open as well. Again, it helps keep everything nice and flat, makes those points extra pointy, and especially in cases like this, it helps prevent shadowing from like this black one. If we press it underneath here, like you would just see all kinds of black underneath your white fabric. That's no fun. We don't want to see that. All right, guys, we've got our final quality check here. We've got our big points in the corners coming in towards the center. We have our split 9 patch, or our 9 patch in one section, and then our main area over here. Our points are fabulous. Man, these came together great. We didn't lose anything with that point. So now we're just gonna sew our 2 halves together, and then we're done with this block. All right, we got one final press open. This is really a point where you absolutely have to lift and press. We have lots of seams here. You just want to open up those seams with your fingertips, lift your iron, and then just set it down. That way everything stays going in the direction it should. All right, now we're going to do one final spritz here and give our entire block a press. You can see it's a little wavy at this point, but once we do the spritz and press, it's going to be fabulous. So when I'm doing the final block, I'll start with that center seam, and then I kind of work my way out because I don't want to warp it. I want it to stay nice and square. So I'm not ironing this the way I would like a shirt. I just want to make sure I'm being very gentle with it as I work. And that's a difference. Like, I can really tell, I think you guys can tell on the camera too, that it is just super flat. Now I do press on a wool pressing mat and with an Aliso iron, and that is just a fabulous combination, especially when you use your spray mister. I've never put water in my iron because every single iron I've ever put water into eventually spits and gets gross. And I have one Aliso at home that I've had for 5 years that is still going strong. It has never had any water in it. I've killed about 3 other irons in that time frame. So it's expensive, but it's a good buy. We don't sell the wool pressing mats because they are awkward and expensive to ship, but they are fabulous. I highly recommend them. So fabulous points here. It's a really fun block. It's a good way to separate your lighter prints from your background because we have all of our medium and dark on the outside here. And so that way it's going to be a clear delineation between these prints that really read the same from a distance. You're still going to be able to get a good block formation, whereas if we had put this right here, we would totally lose that. You wouldn't even be able to tell that there was a triangle there. It would just blend in with the background. So it's super fun pattern. Burst Revisited. It's basically a simplified version of a block of the month that we did a very long time ago that you guys absolutely love. So we're revisiting it. It's fun. It's an easy, fast one. Like, we got all of our fabric 8 days ago, and I will have the quilt top finished tonight. So, and I didn't get started right away on the quilt top. I had to finish the free motion quilting series first. So I've been working on this quilt for like 7 days, and I will have the quilt top finished tonight. And I also designed the pattern, and I've got that sent off to the tech editor by the time I'm filming this video. And by the time you guys see it, it'll also be quilted. So make sure you stay tuned, because we're also going to do a video tutorial on how I quilted this. So lots of fun things going on. Again, the collection is called Birdwatch by Boccaccini Meadows for FIGO Fabrics. It is fabulous. I really like this. It's a very neutral color palette. It'll go in a lot of homes, and it isn't like specifically seasonal, I feel like, because a lot of times some things like look great for spring or look great for winter. This one I feel like could be out all the time. Really work with a lot of decors, especially with those greens. Those greens are super popular right now. It is like a thing. People really like them this time. So FIGO is very good about being on the color trends to match with the current home decor. But anyway, check it out. Check out Stashin with Stephanie. It's a great deal. You get 10 fat quarters for $29.99 a month plus shipping. And I say this every month, and every month I get angry emails about it. So if you sign up by the end of January, which I realize you do not have a lot of time because we got our fabrics super late this month, and so the videos came out late. But if you sign up by the end of January, and your first bundle will ship around the 20th, provided we get our fabric on time. If you sign up February 1st, you have to wait until March 20th to get your first shipment go out. I understand that that's frustrating for some people, but what it allows us to do is prepare the exact amount of bundles that we need for the number of subscribers that we have that month. And that gives everybody the same chance to get additional fabrics, which if you've not been a member before, it is a mad dash to get additional fabrics. The last 2 months we have sold out within hours, sometimes days. Sometimes things have been completely sold out before we've released it to the public a day later after everyone's gotten their first dibs. So it just is, you know, we're working our tails off to get this out to you guys. Some things are totally out of our control, like, you know, an international shipping crisis fueled by a pandemic. You know, we're doing the best we can with what we have here. So, all right, I'll leave you be. Go grab the pattern. It's called Burst Revisited. Sign up for Stashin with Stephanie. And until next time, happy quilting.